There are all sorts of strategies coaches must master at the highest level of basketball. The perfect out-of-bounds play, executing a 2-for-1. But there is one situation in particular that even coaches in the NBA don't get right often enough: foul or defend. With the radical evolution of the modern NBA game focused on three-pointers and a significant increase in capable shooters from behind the arc, there is a game situation that requires a specific coaching decision that decides the fate of the game. When you're up by 3 with under 10 seconds to go, do you take the foul, put the other team on the free throw line, and almost guarantee they cannot tie the game? Or do you assume a more manly pose, deciding that defending till the bitter end is the more honorable way to play? These situations happen more often than you think, and in fact, we've had a number of them in the past week alone. It all started when Cleveland visited Brooklyn 5 days ago, and in overtime, it seemed like the Nets under Steve Nash had it all under control. Up 3 with 8.9 seconds left, James Harden lets them run some precious seconds off before taking the foul. However, they weren't in the bonus yet, so it required another foul to be taken. Put the Cavaliers on the free throw line and eliminate any possibility of them tying the game. In the moments before the inbound, I don't see anybody in the Nets talking to each other, no one reiterating how important it is to take the quick foul and put them on the line. So I wasn't shocked when Colin Sexton, who had been absolutely on fire all game, was allowed to not only catch the ball up top and begin a multi-dribble move towards the line, but he even slightly fumbled the dribble too, and Kyrie made no attempt at fouling him before the shot. I was still shaking my head as the ball went through, and there was also a very real possibility that the ref could have called a foul on this shot, costing the Nets the game. It ultimately went the Cavs' way in 2 overtimes, and surprisingly, no one asked Steve Nash after the game his thoughts on why he didn't take that foul that clearly cost him the game. Let's move on to the Nuggets versus the Suns, who gave us a very entertaining game against 2 evenly matched foes. However, it was a doozy of an ending considering both teams failed to foul up 3, costing them dearly. With 12.2 seconds left, it was a perfect situation coming out of a timeout for Monty Williams to instruct his team to let the clock get under 10 seconds, then take the foul. But they clearly were not instructed to do so, as they allowed the Nuggets to run the entire clock down with plenty of opportunities to take the foul without fear of the player being in the act of shooting, and then let Jamal Murray do a step back that he not only hits, but got fouled on the play too. That should have ended the game if Murray hits the game-winning free throw. Of course, Murray traveled in this play because the ref was in terrible position as the play ended up right on top of him. But eliminate any possibility of them being able to tie it, and the Suns would have gone home with the win when the buzzer sounded. So you'd think Michael Malone would have realized how fortunate he was and not allowed the same scenario to happen to him now that his team had a 3-point lead in the first overtime. Again, coming out of a timeout, he had the perfect opportunity to tell his team to make sure they foul before the player gets into the act of shooting. When you watch what Kaminsky does with the ball when he eventually gets it, and they don't take the foul on a poor free throw shooter, it's madness, and it got worse as Dozier decided to unnecessarily double the ball, giving a good shooter a good look to tie the game. If you didn't believe me before that fouling is better than defending, then I hope you've changed your mind by now. I mean, Monty Williams should have learned his lesson when coaching the New Orleans Pelicans against the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs 6 years ago, when they lost a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter, culminating in this shot to send it to overtime and ultimately a 4-game sweep. As a coach, you have to have the right defensive game plan to avoid getting caught with your pants down like this. And it's that same kind of defense that NordVPN can give you when you want to make your internet activity as private and secure as possible. By routing your normal online traffic through their servers, they can encrypt all of your data so cyber criminals cannot steal it. It can also allow you to access websites that certain countries might have blocked. I've got 2 letters for you, LP. NordVPN has 24/7 customer service, super fast servers with unlimited bandwidth to keep the internet humming. It can also act as an ad blocker. So head over to nordvpn.com/bballbreakdown2 or use my special code bballbreakdown2 at checkout, and you can let NordVPN bend the internet to your will. And right now, you'll save 70% off. At only $356 a month plus an additional month free, it's a no-brainer. Just like taking the foul when you're up by 3. Here's the key. You can gamble by trying to defend an offense running a design play to get you out of position while also taking a severe chance of fouling the shooter as well, or you can take your chances with a team making the first free throw, missing the second one intentionally, somehow corralling the offensive rebound despite the defense being ready for it, and then also somehow gaining enough control to then hit a shot that could tie it. As far as I can tell, I've never seen a team in the NBA intentionally miss the second free throw and somehow get the ball back to the three-point line for a game-winning shot. In the past 4 years, we haven't even seen a team get the offensive rebound. We saw it happen when Duke was able to tie the game against North Carolina with this insane play, but you can imagine how much harder this would be for an NBA team to get away with it. While I did find this play by the Celtics, which allowed them to tie it up when down by 3, I searched the past 4 seasons and couldn't find one example of a team down by 2 with under 10 seconds left that missed a free throw and even got the offensive rebound back, much less put it in. By letting them tie it up with a three-point shot, you then have to deal with an overtime where all bets are off at that point. While the odds of winning the game by merely defending are good, they're significantly better when you foul. According to Steve Finnemore, who did a study on this, here are his results, and to me, that's pretty definitive. But let's look at some other scenarios. The Hornets played the Magic last night, and they were defending while up 3 with 19 seconds on the clock when the possession started. Especially because the Magic had a timeout left, you can't take the foul too early or else they'll have plenty of time to come right back down and look to tie it, or if the Hornets missed 1 or 2 of their free throws, they could win it. As a result, they simply defended as well as they could up until Gordon Hayward foolishly pulled himself out of position off his man in the corner, intentionally giving himself a 20-foot closeout on a decent shooter in Terrence Ross. While Ross does hit it to tie, the Hornets had enough time to come back down and win it on this drive by Hayward, making up for his error on the other end. Let's head over to Brooklyn again, where the Heat were playing in their beach outfits, and it all started with a bad call on Kyrie Irving on this Duncan Robinson three-point attempt down 5. Kyrie was livid, and rightfully so, since you can see on the replay there wasn't contact either up top or down low where Robinson was able to safely land. But the moral of the story is you can't be that close to give the referee the opportunity to make the call. But even with that in mind, I'm on Kyrie's side. This call should not have been made. Of course, this could have been moot had Kyrie just hit the 2 free throws. But he just misses the second, and Miami had a timeout where they could have advanced it to half court and ran a good play to get off a shot. Sometimes you can catch the defense out of position if you push it fast. And perhaps I wouldn't have blamed Spoelstra for thinking that maybe the Nets wouldn't take the foul based on the Cavs game and they'd get off a clean 3. Now, it's unclear if the Nets actually learned their lesson or if it was just James Harden being smart, like he was against the Cavs, and by taking this foul here, enough time had gone off the clock to make it almost impossible to close the gap. Bam chokes the first free throw, so the Nets end up winning the game on free throws anyway. But if you look back at this, you'll see Spoelstra did want a timeout, but it would have been disastrous had they honored it at this point. Once his team began advancing the ball up the court, they would not have been able to inbound at half court after the timeout with under 5 seconds to go. And based on the reaction and positioning of his team, they simply were not in position in transition to make the Nets pay by getting an open 3. So this was a disaster all around. The question of foul or defend could also be a generational thing. Coaches who are 50 or older didn't have to contend with the three-point shot much when just starting out. And the concept of fouling when up 3 simply wasn't a thing for a long time. Greg Popovich does not foul up by 3, and it's led to some disastrous moments for his Spurs. And I get it, he's been really successful doing what he's doing, but there's always room to learn and evolve. And eliminating the possibility of letting the team tie the game seems a clear no-brainer at this point. And I'll leave you with yet another good reason to foul in these situations. Imagine how much easier it is to prepare for the possession defensively when you train your team to foul by making sure they aren't in the act of shooting. No longer do you have to deal with defenders getting stuck out of position, reading the offense wrong, getting stuck on screens, screwing up a switch, or any number of defensive miscues that can happen in pressure situations like these. Taking the foul simplifies the process and gives teams a higher probability of winning the game. It's time for coaches everywhere to accept the fact that taking the foul and playing those percentages is the correct move. In fact, in Europe, coaches could practically get fired for not taking the foul in this situation. and it's time the NBA followed suit. If you like this video, you're going to love my new YouTube membership. There are 3 tiers to choose from, all with tremendous bonus content, including private watch parties. Join me for the next time these two play, and you can come on the show as well. You in?